Hello and welcome to today's daily devotion as we are introducing the book of Hosea today, one of the Old Testament prophets. In fact, the first prophet in what is known as the minor prophets. The minor prophets are not listed or called that because they're less important, but they are minor just in the sense that their books are shorter than are what called the major prophets. Probably the most well-known major prophet, Isaiah. His book or scroll, because they were written on scrolls back then, if you were to unroll the whole scroll of Isaiah, it's about the same length as all 12 of the minor prophets put onto one scroll together. So not that they were less important, their books were shorter. And Hosea starts them off as we take at God's amazing, unfailing love to an unfaithful people. And we'll see that as we describe the book of Hosea. The author, we have no reason to think it would be anybody but Hosea. We don't know much about him. He's simply identified as Hosea, son of Beeri. He is not listed anywhere else in the Bible. The name Hosea means salvation. In Hebrew, it's actually from the same word as the original form of Joshua. So they're actually the same name. And actually, the last king of Israel had the same name as well. But in our English Bible, they're all spelled differently, perhaps just to help us differentiate between all of them. We assume he was from the northern kingdom because of his references to the northern kingdom and less references to the southern kingdom. We'll get into that in a second, what that means. When did he write and when did he serve? He served at least 38 years in the ministry, actually. And if we were to loosely date his time based off of the kings mentioned in the first chapter of his book, we would say roughly the 750s to the 710s BC, somewhere in that range. And we estimate, again, we're just estimating that the book itself was written somewhere from 725 to 715 BC. Now, I mentioned northern and southern kingdoms earlier. What is that? Well, the kingdom of Israel split into two, actually, after Solomon's reign. His son Rehoboam did not follow well. Already there was trouble in the water during Solomon's reign because of heavy taxation, but Solomon was also a very good king and people put up with it. Well, Rehoboam was not as good of a king, and when it was suggested he lower taxes, he made it worse. And the northern 10 tribes of Israel, of the 10 of the 12 tribes, left and formed the northern kingdom, what we usually call the kingdom of Israel. The southern kingdom, the other two, Judah and Benjamin, formed the southern kingdom of Judah. Now, unfortunately, the northern kingdom, both kingdoms very often did not follow the Lord, but the northern kingdom much more. The kings, none of the kings in the northern kingdom were good kings leading the people to God. So many of them led the people away from God. And many of them adopted pagan religions, especially worshiping the Canaanite gods of Baal and Asherah. And we will see in a little bit that worshiping Asherah came with many different sins against the sixth commandment as well. Well, what are the main messages of Hosea? He is exposing Israel's apostasy and their spiritual adultery to God. And he foretells the destruction of the northern kingdom, the northern 10 tribes of Israel by Assyria. There's some very distinctive features of Hosea. In fact, the first 3 chapters is, in many ways, you could say, one of the most distinctive books of the whole Bible because God used Hosea's ministry in a very visual, very impactful way. He had him serve as his own life as a visual aid to the people in his preaching. Hosea was told by the Lord to go and marry a prostitute. And she was not faithful to him, obviously, as they were married. And this served as a visual lesson to Israel of their unfaithfulness. And yet, Hosea was faithful to her, and it was an illustration of God's love for this unfaithful nation and how he remained faithful to the nation. And then he had Hosea go and restore his wife Gomer and, in a sense, restore their marriage and have her become faithful. And this was a picture to the Israelites of what God longed to do for them. We'll see the word Ephraim many times referred to as the the northern kingdom, the 10 tribes of Israel, referred to as Ephraim. Other distinctive features is you really see how that cultic prostitution was a sign of their spiritual adultery. Hosea uses a lot of legal language. In a sense, God is taking Israel to court for their unfaithfulness. And then we see a frequent switch from law to gospel, threat and promise, all sorts of times where we see him going one verse law, one verse gospel like that, because God is very much showing the danger they are in by their sin, but also longing to reach out in love. Hosea is not the most outlineable book. I guess you could say there's 2 major sections. The first 3 chapters, as I mentioned, is the unfaithful wife and the faithful husband. And the rest of the book then is actually Hosea using that as that picture then to prophesy to the people. The unfaithful nation and the faithful Lord. Israel's unfaithfulness, Israel's punishment, and the Lord's faithful love. I look forward to looking at this very distinctive book of the Bible and thank the Lord for his unfailing love to us. See you next time, which will actually be in a week as we head into the weekend. Blessed to be able to step away for a couple days with my family during their spring break. And then I'll be coming back after. I usually take Thursdays off in Lent. So next Friday we will begin the book of Hosea. God bless your day.